Hi, my name's Jason King from 3dprinthq.com, and today I'm going to show you how you can use OpenSCAD to design and 3D print a custom mold to create your own chocolates. Okay, so I'm going to start with OpenSCAD and basically show you how we create the mold. So as you can see, there's nothing rendered there at the moment. Now, traditional molds are created from a block of solid material, and then we cut out the shape that we want to be produced from the mold. So in OpenSCAD we can do something similar. This is a solid block of material. I will be using a flexible material for this ultimately. I'll be using ninjaflex, but you could use any flexible filament that you're able to 3D print with. So I've got this solid block. It's quite easy to create in OpenSCAD. I've created this block function which ultimately uses the cube function. So you've got your X, the size of the X side, the size of the Y side of the length, and then the height is these sizes divided by 3. So you can see that the height is just a third of the width and the depth. So one solid block of material. So what I want to do next to create this mold is cut out a shape from this block of material. So what I'll do, start by making that translucent, and there you go. This is the shape in the red that we're going to cut out of this solid block. As you can see, it's a heart shape, and you might be looking at that thinking, how do you do that in OpenSCAD? It looks quite an elaborate shape with all these curves, but actually when you know how, it's quite easy. So what I'm going to do is just briefly show you how to do that, how to create this shape. What I do in OpenSCAD, there's a function called text where you can actually create two-dimensional text. So I'll just briefly show you. Okay, there's a two-dimensional character, but because we've used, you might look at that and think that's not a character, that's not text, but actually it is, because here we use the Webdings font, which is symbols and shapes. So the letter Y, capital Y, in the Windings font, is actually a heart shape. So yes, that is a character, and we can use the text function to create it. So that's what we start with. And when I looked at that, I thought I wanted a bit more curvature here rather than this pointy edge, so I can use the OpenSCAD offset function with this curve. What that will do is make it a little more rounded, which I think is more suitable for a chocolate, to be honest. Okay, so we've got a 2D shape here. We obviously want this to become a 3D shape, so we can do a linear extrude on it given a certain height, and it will just extrude the shape upwards to the given height, which is what I've done. So given the block and the shape we want to cut out, we can combine the two with this difference function, and what you get is the mold. So what I want to do next is render this so we can create an STL file that's going to be 3D printable after we've sliced it, which I'll use Makerware for, and then I'm going to 3D print this in ninjaflex. So let me render this. There we go. That was quite quick because I did it earlier, so it's remembered the settings. Okay, so if I just click STL, this will export an STL file. There we go. I've already created it there, so I would normally save this in this location, but there's no need right now because I did it earlier. Okay, and then now we've done that, I can open that using Makerware, and you can see the virtual 3D printer here with the build plate and the mold that we're going to create. Nice and flat on the build plate there, so that's good. So that's ready to slice. But what we want to do, because we're not going to create this using PLA plastic or ABS, we're going to use ninjaflex, which is a flexible filament. We need some special settings here. Excuse me. So we'll start with the default low resolution settings. 10% infill is fine because we do want it to be flexible to get the chocolate out of the mould. It hasn't got to be particularly strong or anything, so 2 shells is fine. Layer height is fine. This resolution is fine for, this kind of 3D print. It's not got to be high resolution. Temperature for me personally, 240 works best for ninjaflex. Any lower than that, and I do tend to get blockages in the nozzle, and it doesn't fuse as well as it does at 240. So this is good for me. You might want to use less. You might want to experiment, I think, but this works for me. So I think the most important setting is actually the speed. And anybody who's never used ninjaflex before would probably just go ahead and try and 3D print this now. But what you've got to do, because it's a flexible filament, is you've got to slow it down a bit. In fact, you slow it down quite a lot. So from 90 millimeters per second, I've dropped it to 30 millimeters per second. You can experiment with this. Some people use less than that, but 30 works for me. So hopefully with those settings, I'm ready to export this into a 3D printable file. Okay, save that on the desktop. You can see that slicing, it's slicing quite easily because it's not really a complex shape. And then it's going to verify the file before it prints the file. When I say prints the file, I mean prints the file to the desktop as just a file. It's not going to actually 3D print it yet until I send it to the printer. Okay, that's all done. That's created an X3G file which is ready to 3D print. Okay, what I'm going to show you here is how to start with assuming we're in the situation where we've got some PLA plastic or some other filament already in the extruder. I'm just going to unload that now, as you can see. So slowly pull that out. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is put in the ninjaflex in the top. And I'm going to have to press the lever down because it's a flexible filament, it won't be able to push in by itself. So push that little lever to help it in there. So you're gonna see that extrude at the bottom. That's extruding the blue PLA plastic now that's already in the nozzle. So the goal is to get rid of the PLA plastic that's already in there, and hopefully we'll see some ninjaflex come out in a second. But we are going to have to repeat this process a couple of times. There you go, you can see the red there, the heaters are coming back on. So what we do, we pull out the blue plastic from the nozzle and we pull out the ninjaflex, and then we'll reload it and do the same again. And by doing this, we're clearing out all of the PLA plastic filament that's already in the nozzle. Otherwise it will clog the nozzle if that's combined with the ninjaflex. In fact, as you can see there was a bit of blue PLA plastic stuck to the end of the ninjaflex there. Don't know whether you saw it a second ago. There it is, you can see it. So that's an achievement. We've pulled a bit more plastic out. Clip that off with some scissors. Reload. Same again. Push the ninjaflex in the top of the extruder. Press the little lever down to allow it to go in. And let it feed through, and you'll see it extruding out of the nozzle in a second. Take a while just to feed through because we pulled a lot of it out last time, out of the extruder and the nozzle and the hot end. So you can just see that extruding now. Give it a little helping hand, and yes, I do burn my fingers doing this, and I wouldn't recommend you do put your fingers near the hot end, even though I do it myself. We are at around 230 to 240 degrees Celsius at the moment at that hot end, so yeah, it will burn you. So be very careful of that, obviously. So we've extruded some more ninjaflex, took the ninjaflex out, load it back in. So now we've done this a couple of times, hopefully all the blue PLA plastic has been removed from the nozzle and it's quite clear. So that's extruding much faster now. You can see the black ninjaflex extruding a lot faster there. That was good. And as soon as it extrudes quite well like that, we turn off the extrusion, and what you'll see now is the ninjaflex still coming out. It will do that. It sort of dribbles a little bit. That's not a problem. That's to be expected because it's still really hot in there, and the weight of it is going to drag it down. So we're ready to 3D print now. We're going to 3D print, or start 3D printing the mould that we designed a second ago to create the heart-shaped chocolate. So you'll see it just position itself with the build plate. Bit of a stringy ninjaflex there that we need to pull away. So I think the hot end's already quite hot, so this won't take a second before it's ready to print. You'll see the extruder go across in a second. You can see the bit wobbly there, but you can see I'm still pulling out the ninjaflex so I don't have too much accumulating there. You'll see the extruder go across to the right in a second, ready to print. There we go. So it's going to print this line initially, just to clear out the filament a little bit at the end and make sure it's all working before it goes to actually start creating this square block of ninjaflex for the mould. So there we go, you can see that. Anyway, that's how you 3D print a custom mould for a custom chocolate. For more information about this, please visit 3dprinthq.com/OpenSCAD.